Please, don't tell anyone, she begged, but the Korean Mafia boss had already called his men. She is not supposed to be noticed. That is the whole point. Keep the head down. Move quietly. Refill the glasses. Fold the towels. Straighten the corners. Disappear into the walls of this hotel the way she has learned to disappear everywhere, efficiently, completely, without leaving a trace of herself behind. Nia Okoye has spent 6 months perfecting the art of being invisible in Busan. And tonight, like every other night, she is doing everything right. The suite on the 14th floor smells like expensive cologne and cigarettes that don't belong to the man currently occupying it. The lights are low. The city glitters through floor-to-ceiling glass like a promise she stopped believing in somewhere over the Pacific. She moves through the room in practiced silence. Collecting, arranging, restoring order to a space that belongs to a man she has spent 3 weeks trying not to exist near. She reaches across the side table for the last glass. Her sleeve slides back. She doesn't notice until it's too late. A hand closes around her wrist. Not rough. Not grabbing. Just, there, steady. Inevitable. The way a door closing sounds final even when no one slams it. She freezes. Choi Hyung-bae is standing in the doorway of the bedroom she thought was empty. He is wearing a black suit, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. He looks like he has been awake for hours and unbothered by every single one of them. His dark eyes are not on her face. They are on her wrist. On the marks there. The kind that doesn't come from accidents. The kind that come from hands that don't ask permission. Nia feels the air leave the room. She pulls back, or tries to. His grip doesn't tighten. He doesn't restrain her. He simply holds her wrist with the same quiet authority he holds everything, like releasing it would be a decision he hasn't made yet. Please. Her voice comes out smaller than she intends. Smaller than she is. Please, don't tell anyone. Her mind is already running the calculation. The manager. The guest on the 9th floor who put those marks there and smiled while he did it. The job she cannot afford to lose. The visa. The life she rebuilt from nothing in a city that doesn't know her name. If this gets out, she loses everything. Again. Hyung-bae looks up from her wrist slowly. He studies her face the way a man studies something he already understands but wants to be sure of. His expression doesn't change. Not a flicker of surprise, not a degree of warmth. Just that stillness, the kind that doesn't come from calm. The kind that comes from a man who has already decided what happens next and is simply moving toward it. He releases her wrist. Reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket. And lifts his phone to his ear. Nia, she starts. Stops. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know this man. She doesn't know what he is. She only knows what the other staff whisper in the back corridors. Don't look at him too long, don't ask questions, don't be in a room alone with him. She knows none of that stopped her tonight. The call connects on the first ring. Hyung-bae's voice is quiet. Completely level. The way a flat line on a monitor is quiet. Find out who touched her. Room 914. I want a name in 10 minutes. Asterisk. He ends the call. Look at her. And for the first time since she arrived in this country, Nia Okoye feels something shift in the air around her, something she has not felt in so long she almost doesn't recognize it. She is not invisible to this man. She has not been invisible to him for weeks. And whoever hurt her just made the worst decision of his life inside a building belonging to the most dangerous man in Busan. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I would love to say hello and see just how far our story is reaching. Asterisk. The Grand Latte sits at the edge of Houndy like it was placed there by someone who wanted the sea to feel inferior. 42 floors of glass and imported stone. A lobby that echoes with the kind of quiet that only money can buy. Staff who move like shadows and speak in half volumes and smile with their whole faces even when their feet are bleeding inside their shoes. Nia learned the rhythm of this place the way she learns everything, by watching, by staying still, by making herself small enough that the walls themselves forget she's there. She arrives every evening at 6:45. 14 minutes before her shift begins. Not because the handbook requires it, but because she learned long ago that being early means she controls the room before anyone else enters it. She knows which cart squeaks on the third wheel and takes the other one. She knows Suite 1401 always needs extra towels because the guest runs the shower for 40 minutes before he uses it. She knows the service elevator on the east wing is 3 seconds slower than the one on the west, and those 3 seconds are the difference between being seen and being invisible. Invisible is what she is here for. She ties her hair back before every shift with the same practiced motion, 3 twists, 1 pin, smooth. Her uniform is pressed the night before. Her gold name tag polished the corner of her sleeve. Not because management checks. Because she checks. Because the version of Nia Okoye that arrived in Busan 6 months ago with 2 bags and a phone number scrawled on a folded napkin decided that dignity was the one thing she was keeping, no matter what everything else looked like. She doesn't talk much. The other staff have noticed. The African girl is quiet, she heard one of them say once, not unkindly, just observationally, the way you note weather. She didn't correct them. She is Nigerian and she is quiet, and both of those things are true, and neither of them is a problem she needs to solve for anyone. She works. She eats alone in the staff room with her phone face down and a book she reads 3 pages of before exhaustion wins. She takes the long route back to her apartment because the air off the ocean at midnight smells like nothing she has ever been afraid of. She saves every one she doesn't spend. She calls her mother on Sundays and says everything is fine, and her mother believes her because Nia has always been the daughter who sounds fine even when she isn't. This is her life in Busan. Quiet. Controlled. Safe. For 5 months, it stays that way. The guest in 914 checks in on a Tuesday. She notices him the way she notices all guests, briefly, functionally, cataloging only what is necessary. Middle-aged. Korean. Expensive watch, the kind worn loose on the wrist to signal it doesn't need to be shown off. He travels with 2 phones and no luggage she can see, which means someone carries it for him. He tips in crisp bills without looking at the person receiving them, which tells her everything she needs to know about how he sees the staff. She doesn't think about him after that. The first time it happens, she tells herself it is nothing. She is replacing the toiletries in his bathroom. Routine, 30 seconds, in and out, when he appears in the doorway behind her. She didn't hear him come in. She turns and he is just standing there, closer than he needs to be, with a smile that knows exactly how close it is. "You're thorough," he says. She keeps her expression neutral. "Is there anything you need, sir?" "Just making an observation." His eyes move over her in a way that takes longer than an observation requires. "You're new. I'll be out of your way in a moment." She collects her cart. Keeps her movements professional. Exits without rushing because rushing would mean he won. In the corridor, she exhales slowly. Nothing, she tells herself. Some men like the weather. You don't engage. You wait for them to pass, She has waited out worse. But he doesn't pass. By Thursday he had learned her schedule. She doesn't know how. She only knows that he is always there. In the corridor when she arrives on his floor, in the lobby when she crosses it during her break, once in the staff-adjacent hallway in a way that couldn't have been accidental. He doesn't touch her. Not yet. He only speaks, comments dressed as compliments, questions that aren't really questions, the slow architecture of a man who is used to taking his time because he has never once been told to stop. "You always look so serious. You should smile more. A woman like you, working a job like this. Seems like a waste. I asked the front desk about you." Nia. That's an interesting name. That last one lands differently. He asked about her. He knows her name. He has moved from observation to inquiry, and inquiry is always the step before something worse. She goes home that night and sits on the edge of her bed and looks at her hands for a long time. She thinks about the manager, Mr. Kong, who hired her on a 3-month contract that just turned permanent. Who told her during her review that she was the most reliable member of the evening housekeeping team. Who she knows, without being told, will not want complications from a foreign employee raising concerns about a high-spending repeat guest. She thinks about the visa. She thinks about her mother's voice on Sunday mornings, how certain it sounds when it says, "I know you're going to be all right." She cannot afford to be a problem. She decides she will manage it. Managing it looks like this. She rearranges her cart route to minimize time on the 9th floor. She begins arriving at 914 at the start of her rotation instead of the middle, when he is statistically least likely to have returned from dinner. She keeps every interaction under 90 seconds. She does not meet his eyes. She does not respond to comments that are not direct requests. She makes herself smaller, quieter, more efficient, a moving piece of furniture that completes its function and disappears. For 11 days, it almost worked. On the 12th day, she is in the service corridor 2 floors below his when he finds her. She doesn't know how he got there. Staff corridors aren't for guests. The rules exist precisely for this reason. But rules require someone willing to enforce them, and the man standing between her and the corridor exit has never in his life encountered a rule that cost him anything. He doesn't say anything at first. He just stands there, in his expensive suit, with that loose watch and that patient smile, and lets the silence communicate what he hasn't said yet. Nia tightens her grip on the cart handle. "This area is for staff only, sir. I can walk you back to the... I left something on my floor." He steps closer. "Thought I'd come find it. The elevator is just... I'm not in a hurry." Another step. "Are you?" Later she will not be able to explain clearly what happens next. Only that his hand moves toward her arm and she steps back and her back meets the wall and his grip finds her wrist before she can make the geometry work in her favor. Not a grab, nothing that looks violent. Just a hand closing around her wrist the way you hold something you've decided belongs to you. "You've been avoiding me," he says pleasantly. "Let go of my wrist." Her voice is steady. She has learned how to make her voice steady. "Please." He doesn't. He holds it for exactly long enough to make the point. Then releases her slowly, adjusts his cuff, and walks back toward the guest elevator like a man returning from a stroll. Nia stays in the corridor for 3 minutes after he's gone. She doesn't move. She breathes. She looks at her wrist. His grip was tight enough to leave a mark that will darken by morning, and she does the calculation again, the same one she always does, the one that ends the same way every time. "You cannot be a problem, asterisk. You cannot lose this, asterisk. You will manage it, asterisk." She picks up the cart. She finishes her shift. The man in the 14th floor suite has been at the hotel for 3 weeks before Nia notices him noticing her. Not the way the guest in 914 notices her. Not with that patient, calculating hunger that she has learned to feel before she sees it. This is different. This is the kind of attention that doesn't announce itself, the kind that simply is, like the weight of a room changes without a door opening or closing. Choi Hyung-bae occupies the premier suite on the top residential floor. She knows his name from the assignment board, nothing more. She cleans his suite on Tuesdays and Fridays when the second-floor team is short-staffed and they pull from her rotation to cover. She has been in his space 4 times. He has been present for 2 of those. The first time, he was on a call by the window, speaking in a low voice she couldn't hear and didn't try to. He didn't acknowledge her. She cleaned and left in 11 minutes. The second time, he was seated at the desk with a folder open and a glass of something amber at his elbow. She noticed the tattoos when she moved past, dark ink climbing from his fingers up past his wrist, disappearing beneath his rolled sleeve. She noticed the way he sat. Not relaxed. Not tense. Exactly still, the way things are still when they are choosing to be. He didn't speak to her. But when she reached the door to leave, she had the distinct and unsettling sensation of being watched. She turned once, briefly. He was looking at the folder. She left. She didn't think about it. The third and fourth times, he wasn't there at all. But in the third week of his stay, she begins to notice small things that she cannot explain. A member of the lobby staff mentioned, offhandedly, that the gentleman in 1401 had asked which team covered his floor. A senior housekeeper told her that he had specifically requested continuity, the same staff, the same schedule. Not unusual for long-stay guests. Unusual in the way it is delivered, carefully, like information she is supposed to do something with. She doesn't do anything with it. She has enough to manage. The night it happens, she is tired in the particular way that goes past the body and settles somewhere behind the eyes. She has spent the week rearranging herself around a man she should not have to rearrange herself around. She has come to work and done her job and kept her face composed and her wrist covered and her voice professional, and every night she has gone home and pressed her back against her apartment door in the dark and stood there until her heartbeat decided to believe her. You're fine. You're managing. This is survivable, asterisk. Suite 1401 is last on her round tonight. She enters with her pass card at 10:47. The suite is quiet. The city spreads itself below the windows in gold and white, indifferent and enormous. She begins at the far end of the room, working inward, surfaces, cushions, the console table with its single orchid that she straightens without thinking. She doesn't hear him until she is at the side table. She doesn't know he has returned. She reaches for the glass at the edge of the table. Arm extended, sleeve falling back in that small careless way it sometimes does, the way she usually catches before it matters. Tonight she doesn't catch it. A hand closes around her wrist. And she goes cold from her spine outward. But it isn't rough. It isn't grabbing. It is just, there, the same word she used for something else, for someone else, but entirely different in every way that matters. Still. Deliberate. The hand of a man who has seen something and decided to look at it properly before he decides what it means. She turns. Choi Hyung-bae is standing close enough that she can see the tattoos on his fingers, the clean line of his jaw, the way his dark eyes are not on her face but on her wrist. On the mark there, the bruise she covered this morning with her sleeve and told herself was already fading. It isn't fading. His gaze moves up to her face. Slow. Unhurried. Reading everything she has spent weeks learning to hide. The fear moves through her differently than she expects. Not the sharp, animal fear of the corridor 2 floors down. Something quieter. The fear of being seen, of having the version of herself she has carefully constructed, competent, contained, invisible, come undone in the hands of a stranger in a room she was never supposed to stay long in. Please. The word leaves her before she chooses it. Barely a sound. Please. Don't tell anyone. Her mind does what it always does. Calculates. The manager. The guest. The visa. The job. The life she does not have the resources to rebuild a second time. She is looking at him and already grieving the thing she is about to lose, because that is what she has learned to do, prepare for the loss before it arrives, so the impact is something she can survive. Hyung-bae doesn't answer. He looks at her wrist for one more moment. At the mark, at the story it tells without her permission, and something moves through his expression. No pity. Not surprising. Something colder and more deliberate than either of those things. Something that looks, to Nia's exhausted and frightened eyes, almost like a decision being made. He releases her wrist. Reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket. His phone is in his ear before she can speak again. The call connects immediately. One ring, maybe less, like whoever is on the other end was already waiting. His voice is quiet. It fills every corner of the room anyway. 9th floor. Find out who is staying in 914. I want everything, name, company, how long he's been here. 10 minutes. Asterisk. He ends the call. Look at her. Nia presses her back against the side table. Her cart is 3 feet away. The door is 12 feet beyond that. She is calculating again, the way she always calculates. Except this time she doesn't know what she's calculating toward, because this man has just done something she has never once had done for her, by anyone, in any city, in any version of her life. He saw the mark. And his first move was not toward her. It was toward whoever put it there. She doesn't know what to do with that. She doesn't know what he is. She doesn't know what comes next. She only knows that the suite has changed. That the air in it is different now, charged with something she doesn't have a name for, and that Choi Hyung-bae is looking at her with those unreadable eyes and the city is glittering behind him like it always does and she is standing in the middle of it all, finally, terrifyingly visible. You should sit down, he says quietly. It is not a question. It is not a threat. It is the first thing anyone has said to Nia Okoye in 6 months that sounds, in some strange and complicated way, like it might be safe. She doesn't sit down. But she doesn't leave either. And somewhere below them, on the 9th floor of the Grand Latte, a man who believed his wealth made him untouchable is about to learn the name of the person he chose to put his hands on, and understand, far too late, what that choice has already cost him. She finds her voice somewhere between the side table and the window. It isn't much of a voice. It comes out low and careful, the way she speaks when she is trying to sound steadier than she is, which is something she has had years of practice at, and still hasn't fully mastered. You don't have to do that, she says. Hyung-bae is still standing where he was. He hasn't moved toward her. He hasn't moved away. He simply occupies the room the way he occupies everything. Completely, without effort, like the space around him reorganizes itself to accommodate his stillness. He looks at her. Do what? He says. Whatever you just called them for. She keeps her voice level. It isn't what it looks like. I bumped it on the cart. The corridors on the lower floors are narrow and Nia. Just her name. Nothing attached to it. No accusation, no impatience, no particular emotion she can locate and respond to. Just the word, landing with a weight that stops her mid-sentence. She closes her mouth. He lets the silence sit for a moment. The corridors on the lower floors, he says quietly, are the same width they have always been. And that mark is 4 days old. She stares at him. He looks back at her without apology. He is not a man who softens things to make them easier to carry. She understands this already, instinctively, the way you understand certain things about certain people before a single explanation is offered. Please. She tries again, and hates how much the word costs her each time. I have a job here. I have a contract. If this becomes a situation, if management gets involved, if the guest complains about staff making accusations, no one is going to management. Then what are you? I am handling it. Simple. Flat. Final. That is all you need to know right now. Nia looks at him for a long moment. The phone is now back in his jacket pocket. At the tattoos on his hands and the quiet authority in his posture and the expression on his face that has not changed since the moment he first saw her wrist, that same cold, decided look, the look of a man who has already run the calculation and arrived at an answer he has no intention of revising. She wants to argue. She has spent 6 months arguing with the world through endurance, through silence, through the daily discipline of not becoming a problem. She knows how to fight without making noise. She knows how to survive without asking for anything. What she doesn't know is how to stand in a room with someone who has simply decided, without being asked, to stand between her and the thing she's been surviving. She doesn't know what to do with that kind of person. So she does the only thing available to her. She picks up her cart. I need to finish my round, she says. Hyung-bae watches her move toward the door. You're on this floor until midnight, he says. Not a question. She stops. Yes. Then you'll finish your round. A pause. Don't go to the 9th floor tonight. She turns to look at him one more time. His face tells her nothing and everything simultaneously. She leaves. In the East Wing corridor, 3 floors below, 2 phones ring at the same time. The men who answer them are not the kind of men whose names appear on hotel registries or corporate directories. They move through the city's infrastructure the way water moves through concrete, finding the gaps, applying pressure, going exactly where they are directed without announcement or delay. Hyung-bae speaks to each of them for under a minute. He doesn't raise his voice. He never raises his voice. Volume is for people who are not certain they will be obeyed, and Choi Hyung-bae has not been uncertain of that particular thing in a very long time. By 11 o'clock, his men had a name. Park Jun-sik. 51 years old. Director of a mid-tier logistics company with 3 government contracts and a reputation for extracting favors from people in positions that make refusal expensive. 2 prior complaints filed by employees, both withdrawn before investigation concluded. A pattern that requires, as patterns do, a sufficient accumulation of power to sustain itself. He has been a guest of the Grand Latte 4 times in the past year. He has requested the same housekeeping rotation each visit. He has never once been asked to leave. Hyung-bae reads the summary on his phone standing at the window of his suite. The city below him continues its indifferent business. He finishes reading. Sets the phone face down on the desk. Picks up the glass of amber liquid he poured an hour ago and hasn't touched. He thinks about the mark on her wrist. 4 days old. Which means it happened while she was still smiling at her cart and arriving 14 minutes early and pressing her uniform the night before and doing all the things a person does when they have decided to outlast something instead of escaping it. He sets the glass down without drinking from it. Picks up his phone again. Find out where he is right now, he says. And watch the 9th floor corridors. If he moves toward housekeeping, call me immediately. He ends the call. Sits down. Waits. Waiting is something Hyung-bae is good at. He learned it early, in the particular school that teaches it most effectively, the school of rooms where patience was not a virtue but a survival mechanism, where moving too soon cost more than moving at all. He was 19 the first time someone tested whether he would flinch, and he didn't, and the man who tested him understood something in that moment that reorganized everything between them permanently. He does not flinch. He does not rush. He simply identifies what is wrong and applies the precise amount of force required to correct it. No more. No less. The elegance of it is not something he has ever explained to anyone, because the people around him don't require explanation, they require direction, and he gives it cleanly. What he cannot explain, even to himself, is why the woman from housekeeping has occupied a corner of his attention for 3 weeks when she has done absolutely nothing to invite it. He noticed her the way you notice things that move differently than their surroundings. Everyone in this hotel performs their role. They smile, they move, they produce the gestures of service in the way the handbook instructs. Nia Okoye performs nothing. She simply works. Quietly, precisely, with a kind of focused dignity that has nothing to perform because it isn't for anyone else's benefit. He noticed that. He filed it. He did not act on it, because there was nothing to act on. Until tonight. She is on the 12th floor when her radio crackles. A routine check-in from the night supervisor. She responds, confirms her location, continues down the corridor with her cart. The hotel is quieter at this hour, the ambient sounds of the city reduced to something distant and coastal, the corridors lit in that particular soft gold that luxury hotels use to suggest that even their hallways are doing you a favor. She is almost at the end of the 12th floor rotation when she realizes she is missing a set of replacement toiletries for the last suite. She checks her cart. Check again. They were there an hour ago. She retraces her route mentally. The service room at 11. She left them on the shelf when she restocked. She'll need to go back down. She takes the service stairs. She does not think about the 9th floor until she is on it. She is not supposed to be here. She knows this. He told her. Don't go to the 9th floor tonight, and she heard him, and she intended to comply, and the service stairs from 12 to 11 pass directly through the 9th floor landing, and she has taken these stairs 100 times and her body simply took the familiar route before her mind caught up. She pushes through the stairwell door. The corridor stretches ahead of her, quiet, carpeted, lit in the same soft gold as every other floor. The supply room is 20 meters to the left. She moves toward it quickly, keeping close to the wall, eyes forward. She is 10 meters from the door when she hears him. I've been looking for you. She stops. Park Jun-sik is standing at the far end of the corridor. He is not in his suite. He is not heading to the elevator. He is simply standing there, in his suit jacket, with that patient and unhurried expression, like a man who arranged this, who knew she'd come this way, or who waited long enough that eventually she would. She assesses the distance between herself and the stairwell door behind her. She assesses the distance between herself and the supply room. She assesses his posture, his position, the fact that the corridor is empty in both directions. I'm not on this floor tonight, she says. Professional. Controlled. Giving him nothing. I need to access the supply room and then I'll be on my way. You've been avoiding me. Sir, if you have a service request, you can contact the front desk and they'll. I don't have a service request. He moves. Not fast. Not slow. The careful pace of a man who believes the corridor belongs to him. I just want a conversation. I'm on shift. Then take a break. He is close now. Too close. The same geometry as the service corridor 3 floors down, 10 days ago, and her back is not against a wall yet, but it will be if she doesn't move, and the stairwell door is behind her and he is between her and everything else, and she is running the calculation again, the same terrible calculation. The elevator at the end of the corridor opens. Park Jun-sik hears it first. He turns his head. 3 men step out. Dark suits. No expression. They move into the corridor with the quiet efficiency of people who do not need to announce themselves because their presence is announcement enough. They don't speak. They don't rush. They simply position themselves, one near the elevator, one midway down the corridor, one close enough to matter, and they stop. And they wait. Park Jun-sik looks at them. His patient smile does something complicated. Not disappearing exactly. Rearranging. Like a man who has just been handed information he wasn't expecting and needs a moment to recalculate. Who are? The second elevator opens. Choi Hyung-bae steps out. He is wearing the same black suit as earlier. He has not hurried. He walks the length of the corridor at his own pace, unhurried and absolute, and the air moves differently around him the way it always does, the way a room changes not loudly but completely when something enters it that was not there before. He stops. He looks at Nia first. 1 second. Just one. Reading her face, her posture, the distance between her and the man in front of her. Then his gaze moves to Park Jun-sik and stays there. He says nothing. The silence is extraordinary. Park Jun-sik is a man who has spent his career understanding power, who has it, who performs it, and how to position himself relative to it. He has walked into rooms and known within seconds where he ranked. He has cultivated the ability to read a situation and respond accordingly, and that ability has served him without failure for 30 years. It fails him now. Because the man looking at him from the far end of this corridor does not fit any category he has ever walked into a room with. Not corporate authority. Not law enforcement. Not the polished aggression of a rival businessman protecting his interests. Something older than all of that. Something that does not require a title or a context or a room to belong to, because it simply is, present, contained, and looking at him with eyes that have no heat in them whatsoever. I think, Hyung-bae says quietly, there's been a misunderstanding. Park Jun-sik straightens. He is still performing, even now. I don't know who you are, but this is a private conversation between me and... There is no conversation. Hyung-bae takes one step forward. Just one. There is no floor of this building you have access to that she is on. There is no message, no call, no corridor. There is nothing. Another pause. Absolute and unhurried. You should have chosen someone else. The words land the way they are meant to, not loudly, not dramatically. Like a door closing on a room you are no longer permitted to enter. Park Jun-sik looks at the three men in the corridor. Looks at Hyung-bae. Looks at Nia, briefly, with an expression she has seen before on men who are recalculating who she belongs to rather than understanding that she has never belonged to anyone. He straightens his jacket. He walks to the elevator. He does not speak again. The doors close behind him. Nia releases a breath she has been holding since the stairwell. The three men in dark suits have already begun moving, quietly, without instruction, back toward the elevator, back toward wherever they came from. Efficient. Final. Like a mechanism completing its function and returning to standby. Hyung-bae crosses the corridor toward her. He stops at a respectful distance. Look at her face the way he looked at her wrist earlier, carefully, without flinching from what he finds. Are you hurt? He says. No. The word comes out steadier than she expects. No. He didn't, she stops. Tries again. I wasn't supposed to be on this floor. I forgot something in the supply room and I took the wrong stairs and I know you told me not to come down here, I know, I just... Nia. She stops. It doesn't matter how you got here, he says. You're safe. She looks at him. At the jaw set quiet and certain. At the tattoos on his hands and the absolute stillness of his posture and the dark eyes watching her with that same unreadable expression that she is slowly, reluctantly, beginning to be able to read after all. She looks at him and feels the thing she has been holding for 6 months, for longer than 6 months, for years before Busan and years before the ocean and years before the Tuesday morning she pulled a door shut behind her and chose distance over one more night of endurance. She feels it begin, very slowly and very quietly, to put itself down. Not gone. Not resolved. Not the end of anything complicated. Just, set down. For a moment. In this corridor. Because someone is standing in it who has decided, without being asked, that her safety is something worth the full weight of his attention. She doesn't know what to do with that. She is going to have to learn. Park Jun-sik checks out of the Grand Latte at 7 the following morning. No scene. No complaints. No request for an explanation or a manager or a formal review of whatever he believes happened in that corridor. He settles his bill, collects his 2 phones, and leaves with the same arrogant composure he arrived with, except for something around his eyes that wasn't there before. A new and careful quality. The look of a man who has been shown a door he didn't know existed and has decided, wisely, not to test whether it opens from the other side. Nia hears about it from the morning shift supervisor who mentions it in passing, the way departures are always mentioned. Neutrally, informationally, already moving on to the next item. She is refilling her cart in the service room when she hears it. She stops. Sets down the stack of towels she's holding. Stands very still in the middle of the service room with its industrial shelving and its fluorescent light and its complete indifference to whatever is happening inside her chest right now. He's gone. Just, gone. No formal process. No complaint procedure. No manager's meeting where she would have had to sit across a table and explain the marks on her wrist to someone who needed to weigh her word against a high-spending guest's. No version of events she had to make palatable. No cost to her contract, her visa, her carefully rebuilt life. Just, gone. She picks up the towels. She finishes her shift. But something is different on the walk back to her apartment that night. The ocean air is the same. The city is the same. Her feet carry her the same long route they always take, the one that passes close enough to the water that she can hear it. She stops at the railing. Looks out at the sea. Thinks about a man with tattoos on his hands and eyes that decided something without explanation and a phone call that lasted under a minute and changed the entire geometry of her life at the Grand Latte. She doesn't know what Choi Hyung-bae is. She has fragments now. The whispers from the staff, the men who appeared in that corridor with the precise efficiency of people who do not improvise, the way the entire building seemed to hold its breath when he walked into it. She knows enough to know that the world he operates in is not one that runs on the same rules as the one she's been surviving in. She knows enough to know she should probably be more careful than she is about the fact that he looked at her wrist and made a phone call and her first feeling was not fear. She knows all of that. She stays at the railing a while longer. The sea doesn't tell her anything useful. It rarely does. It just continues its vast and patient business, indifferent to the small human reckoning happening at its edge. A woman standing at the border of something she doesn't have a name for yet, feeling, for the first time in longer than she can account for, like the ground beneath her might actually hold her weight. She breathes in. She breathes out. She goes home. And 3 blocks behind her, at a distance that keeps itself perfectly invisible, one of Hyung-bae's men walks the same route she walks, quiet, unhurried, present, making sure she arrives safely. As he has done, every night, for the past 3 weeks.